Okay, guys. So, like I was saying, we got a little sidetracked there, but we're doing power laws. Okay, so as a
Like to the power.
yeah,
5 to the power of 3 would be 15, yes?
no.
Oh, wouldn't it be like, isn't it like, it's like squared, but if it's like 3 up top, it goes 5 times 5 times 5.
All right, yeah, you're
So
great.
it's-
Yeah.
it's times
So,
itself by
I've been
6.
trying explaining it to me on
all right, so guys, that's where we're going. But a big part of this is like using exponents or using powers and performing some operations. So I know you guys have done this. Order of operations. You guys have seen that, right? Order of operations. Bed mass, you've probably seen it called before. Right, so we're actually going to go over that as the review this class. Okay? Because we're going to go over that as a review, and then we're going to start talking about powers, and then we're going to start doing that order of operation stuff with powers, right? So I want to make sure you guys have like an okay grasp on order of operations before we get going here. Okay, so that and some of our rules for multiplying and dividing with negatives or positives and that kind of stuff, right? So if I have, let's say 2 numbers, so you can use that example, or I'm just going to write one beside it. If I had, like, let's say -2 times -3. Do you guys remember what you get if you go negative times a negative?
You get a positive.
Yeah, right? You get a positive, right? So that becomes positive. So 2 times 3 is
Positive 6.
positive 6. That's going to be positive, right? I'm going to do all the variations here just to make sure we kind of remember. What if it was, let's say, -2 times 3? What do you get if you go a negative times a positive?
Negative.
Yeah. Okay. Negative. Good. So that would be -6. Right? What do we get if we go, well, I'll just change it up a little again. 3 times -2. Actually, here, I'll write it the same way. Here, we'll go 2 times -3. So positive times a negative. Yeah.
It's still negative.
Still negative. Doesn't matter, right? If you're going like negative times a positive or positive times a negative, doesn't matter. You end up getting a negative. Yeah, so that's going to be -6. And then if I had just positive times a positive, so 2 times 3, positive times a positive is, so just 6 there, right? Everyone's good with that? All right. Now, if we're dividing, it's all the same. It's all the same. We're just dividing now, but it's going to be the same rule. If I went, let's say, -3 divided by -2. Actually, let's do one that actually works out as a number, a nice number. Let's go -6 divided by -2. What would that be? Positive 3, right? Negative divided by a negative. Same as multiplying, right? We get the same thing, so it's going to be still positive. If I went -6 divided by 2, that would be with the hands. Yeah.
-3.
Negative. Oh, sorry, guys. Yeah, negative. Tell me when I'm being silly. Okay, that was going to be positive 3 in the last one. So now this is -3. Okay, and then what about this? What if I had 6 divided by -2? Yeah, still -3. And then what if I just had 6 divided by 2? Yes, that's just 3. All right, so you guys good with that one?
Yeah.
Now, I want to show you one other thing because you're going to see fractions written different ways, and it kind of confuses people, especially with that negative in there. So, keeping that in mind, if I had, let's say, -3/2 written like that, and you guys see how the negative is like written out front? So you guys see that? How it's out front? Well, that is exactly the same thing as -3 divided by 2. Are you guys good with that one? Doesn't that make sense? Because -3 on top divided by 2, negative divided by positive, that thing's coming out negative. They really are the same thing, right? So it's written different, same thing, right? -3/2 is the same thing as just negative and then 3/2. Same thing. Yeah.
So when you're multiplying, negative times a positive equals
Negative.
a negative.
Yeah.
But then, since division's opposite of multiplication, it would say it was the same question, it would be a positive.
No, don't go that way. Just stick to the same rules where if you got 2 negatives, it's a positive, whether you're talking about multiplying or dividing. Don't try to do the opposite or anything. I know what you're thinking, but yeah.
It's like division is the opposite of
It's a
multiplication.
no.
Yeah, it's still going to be negative in that sense. It's not going to be opposite in the sense you're thinking of. We'll talk about that after, yeah. Okay, so that being said again, so let's go back to this one. So negative 3 over 2 is the same thing as negative out front and then 3 over 2. It's also true to say this. Let's go 3 over negative 2. That's also just negative 3 over 2. It doesn't matter. That negative can be anywhere we want. It can be in the top, it can be in the bottom, or it could be out front. Those all just mean negative 3 over 2. That number of 3 over 2, or 1.5, is a negative number.
But in the middle one is 3 over negative 2. And you said it means negative 3 over 2.
So negative 3 over 2 is like, so out of that, like if you wanted to, you could change that to a decimal, right? And you get that that's 1.5. And then positive divided by a negative gives you a negative. So it's negative 3 over 2, right? Like it doesn't matter how you write it. Those are all the same. Negative on the top, negative on the bottom, negative out front. So don't get like tripped up by that. Be like, oh, I haven't seen it this way or I haven't seen it that way. Doesn't matter. Okay? So that's one point where kids get confused. While we're on that train of thought here, the other one that kids get confused by, before we move on, is this. Let's say I had 2 over 1 times 3 over 4. And we're going to like multiply those or something. Do you guys remember what to do with fractions? Like how we multiply fractions? Yeah, we.
I believe it's just doing basic multiplication.
It's
Like
like
you do the
straight.
top first and then the bottom.
Yeah, just straight across, right? So that would be the same thing. So 2 times 3 is going to be 6 over 4. Okay, we're not going to do too many of these right now, and then we could simplify that. Divide the top and the bottom by 2. So that would be 3 over 2. Okay, now this 2 over 1 times 3 over 4, that would really be the same thing. I could write that like multiple ways, right? I could write that as, well, 2 over 1 is the same thing as 2, right? That could be 2 times 3 over 4. You might see it written like that too. Kids quite often think that's different, right? But really, in this sense, 2 over 1, right? That's the same thing. Do you guys see how it's just like written like a little cockeyed though?
Yeah.
Like this one, like the 2 is there and 3 over 4 is not the right way.
Yeah.
But that still is just 2 over 1 times 3 over 4, right? The 2's in the top there in the numerator. The
Yeah.
3's in the numerator there. Denominator.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're just kind of written cockeyed.
Oh, so if it just like say if it was a 3 and it was just like 3 over 4, then it would just be like 4 and then it would be 3. It'd be 9 over 4. Because then it's like basically.
We're gonna run into it more, but let's just kind of move on to these other ones here. So
I was in different example.
let's go on to these ones now.
I understand you don't.
Working with negatives, so addition and subtraction, like when we're doing like negatives now. So let's say that we've got something like this first one, right? So we've got negative 10 plus negative 5, right? And we want to figure out what that is, and we want to figure out what that is in our head, not just using our calculator. Anybody know what that is? Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
How can we get there without doing that? So it's too bad for the video, but I'm going to show a number line here. Okay. Bed mass. Okay, so bed mass. So really what we're talking about here is order of operations. So the idea, just before we get going here, let's just actually make a simple one. What if I had this written down? What if I had 1 minus 3 times 2? And I asked you what the answer is. And you can probably see by looking at this, right, that there's lots of different ways that we can get the answer for this. That we can go, okay, 1 minus 3 would be negative 2. So I could go, okay, well, that's negative 2 times 2 would be equal to negative 4. Right? So that's like an answer I got out of that. Yeah. Or what else?
Well, you have to do multiplication first since it becomes before addition and subtraction. So it'd end up being 1 minus 6, which is negative 5.
Okay, good. Yeah. So, or you could do it, yeah, that way, we could say, well, the other way of doing it is saying, let's go 3 times 2. Right? We'll go 3 times 2. So we got 1 minus 3 times 2 is 6. So now if I'm looking at the number line again, thinking that way, I'm at 1 on the number line, and I'm going 6 to the left. So where am I going to land here? If I'm on my number line, so if there's 0 and that's 1, and I'm going 6 to the left, 5, right? I'm gonna be at 1 at 5. I'm into the negative territory over here. -5.
But then that's two different answers.
That's 2 different answers, right?
And that's why what that matters.
Well, here, that's the thing, right? Here's the real rule, is that you would always just do inside brackets first. So in my example where I had 1 minus 2 times 3, there was no brackets there, right? But there actually is like implied brackets. There should be brackets around there, so that I know that I'm supposed to do that first. And someone who was really being clear about what they meant, right? If you were a scientist and you were writing this down, they would put brackets around that to make sure the person doing the calculation knew to do inside the brackets first, right? That's really the only rule. Do inside the brackets first, and then work your way out.
But even without the brackets, you still go by bedmass, just multiplication comes before.
Right. So in this case, when it was written like this, to tell you the truth, that was a silly way to write it. Who would write it that way? If I was doing math, right? If I was actually like doing like proper math, like a problem, that would be a strange way to write out the problem.
Isn't that still right though?
Well, what I should do, like the person who's writing down the question, because this would mean something, right? Those numbers would come from a real world situation. If I meant this, then I would put brackets around there to be like, okay, 2 times 3 and then 1 minus that. Or if I meant something different, maybe I would do this. I'd put brackets around those two and say, no, what I wanted to do was actually go 1 minus 2 first and then times 3. So this is actually a pet peeve of mine. In Math 9, we like make you guys like learn BEDMAS. But even like this statement here is just a strange way to write it. You know, like that, like who would write it that way, like in the real world? They really wouldn't, right? So
They would do each step and
if,
Wouldn't they do just simplify?
well, so here, let's do this one. So according to BEDMAS, we're supposed to do, so BEDMAS stands for brackets first, and then exponents. You guys didn't really have to deal with that up until now. And then division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction, right? So it's supposed to be in that order.
What are exponents?
Answer is 0.
We'll go over it. So,
Okay, I'll just block.
all right. So what we're gonna do first? Well, what should we do first? Is there any brackets in this question? Yeah. So we're gonna do inside the brackets first, even though that's addition, right? So that's got to come first. So then we're gonna work our way down. So here I'm gonna write the whole thing out so we can see it a bit more clearly. So we got 6 times 3 plus 2 minus 10 divided by 2. All right, so in math, we don't write things from left to right. So what I don't want to see you guys doing is going equals and then writing this all like as 6 times 5 minus 10 divided by 2, like writing it from left to right. In math, we write from top to bottom. So especially when we're simplifying this thing, we're going to start with this, and then we're going to work our way down, okay? So this thing, when we're done, should be like an upside down triangle. It's going to get smaller and smaller until we're left with one answer, right? That's the way we do math problems. So, okay, so we've got 6. I'm just going to write it again. So 6 times, and then I'm going to do the bracket part. So 5. So I'm just going to replace that bracket part with just the number 5. And then I'm going to have minus 10 divided by 2, and then I'm going to reassess, right? And then I'm going to be like, okay, now what? What's the next step now?
Divide.
So it says that we've got division and multiplication are our next ones, right? Now, yeah, just quickly, division and multiplication don't actually matter on the way you do, like in the order that you do it.
Oh,
If I go 2 times 3 divided by 2 or something, that's actually the same thing as 2 divided by 2 times 3. You end up getting the same answer out of that. Multiplication and division don't have an order that matter, right? But kind of our rule here, because we're just kind of like sticking to this BEDMAS thing, is you do the one that shows up first, like between addition and multiplication. So the multiplication shows up first, like from left to right. So we're just gonna do that one first.
It doesn't matter if, like, let's say, like in this example, even though.
But it could just as easily be B, E, M, D, A-S.
Beam.
Oh, right. 'cause
Beamed S.
Multiplication, division, you can do it either.
You can do it in either order, yeah, it doesn't matter, right? So you can do those in either order. So I'm actually gonna do both of these things in one move, right? We can shorten these things down a little bit, right? So I'm gonna go 6 times 5 is
35.
30. I'm very hopeful.
30.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then this minus has to come last, right? That's gonna be the last thing we do, like subtraction. So 30 minus, and then 10 divided by 2 is 5.
So
And then we've just got one thing left. 30 minus 5 is 25.
that makes it
Look,
2 times.
hold on.
Yeah.
One's white.
Okay, so that's kind of it. Let's do another one here though. All right, so let's make one up. So let's go 2 times negative 3,
Why are brackets like that?
because I like brackets like that, times negative 4 minus, let's go 6 over 3, and then plot, no, and then minus negative 2.
That's
Oh man.
So, you know, this is what makes me want to cry. You should break it down.
Okay. Actually, yeah, so let's break this one down, right? So bed mass. So write that down somewhere beside. So bracket. And I wrote these funny square brackets. Do those matter? Like, it doesn't matter that they're square though?
Kind of. No, they don't matter that they're square. but
Yeah,
it matters that they're
bracket. That's not like a new like special thing we have to worry about. Brackets or brackets. I just made them square so that it was a bit more clear, like what, you know. So that was a square and that was a square, so I know like what's the opening bracket and what's the closing bracket. Like, it just makes it easier to see.
Since bracket is the start of Bedman's,
You do
wouldn't
all
that be like 90% of the equation?
It would. So I got to kind of work my way in. So brackets is first. So all I know is that I got to do inside here first. So that just kind of tells me don't worry about multiplying by this yet, right?
That's the least.
So he has laser worries, but we'll just forget about that too for a second. Now looking to the inside, what do we got going on here? Well,
-3.
that's minus and that's minus, but I do see a multiplication symbol there, right? Like a dot. You guys remember that a dot also means multiply. So that's our first move. So we're gonna do that one first. So let's just work our way down again. This 2 doesn't change, so I'm just gonna write that as 2 in my bracket, and then let's do this one. Negative 3 times negative 4.
2 negatives. cancel.
2 negatives.
So it's gonna be
3 times 4 is 12.
12, right? Yeah, positive 12. Okay, and then if you can't see anything else, let's just write this again. So then minus. Well, I guess we could do this one right now too. Are you guys all right with this one?
Yeah.
What is 6 divided by 3? Because that
Oh, that's
multiplying and dividing can come at the same time. What is 6 divided by 3? 2, right? Let's just call that 2.
Minus 2.
That made life easier.
Minus 2. By a whole line.
And then, while we're at it, can we just rewrite this one? We won't actually do the operation, but minus a negative. How can I rewrite that?
plus.
plus
and then-
negative.
Yeah.
Plus positive.
Yeah, you guys, that was my little trick there. Do you see how that actually looks like a little plus sign already? Just change it to a plus. So that's going to be the same thing as 2
Looks like a blimp.
plus 2. And then I've got my brackets.
That makes it 10
Circle.
times.
Whoa.
Okay.
Shorten that so much.
Yeah, that made it way easier now, right? So, what are we going to do now? So now we are going to addition, right? So let's go
2 plus 2.
2 plus 2. So we'll just write it all again. So we've got 2, square bracket, 12, and then this becomes minus 2 plus 2 is 4. So then now we're doing inside the bracket. So we've got 2 bracket, 12 minus 4 is
8.
8.
2 times 8.
And then 2 times 8 is 16.
Wow.
Do you guys see how I was saying how you just work your way down until you end up with a single number?
It's a right triangle.
Kind of.
Let's find the area.